Hi everyone, it's Barbara and welcome back to my channel. I have another Dollar Tree winter DIY video for you today, so let's jump right on into our first project. I'm using this 8x10 plastic frame from Dollar Tree, and I'm going to go ahead and remove the backing and the glass and set everything to the side. And I'm going to be painting this glass with 2 coats of my Deco Art Gray Chalky Finish paint. Love this paint, love this color. I do allow it to dry in between coats, and then I paint it in the opposite direction on the second coat. And then for the frame, I'm going to be painting it with my Waverly Chalk Paint in Truffle, just to give it a nice, more realistic wood look rather than a plastic look. After the truffle paint has dried, I'm going to go back in with my Apple Barrel acrylic paint in the color Warm Buff and a wet paper towel. And I'm just going to dab it into the paint and then wipe most of the paint off and then just go around the entire frame. And this is going to bring out that wood grain look in this frame. So it makes it look a lot more realistic, and it's very beautiful. It just brings that wood grain out. And then I'm going to set that to the side, and I'm going to take one of Dollar Tree's metal welcome words, and I'm going to give it 3 coats of my Waverly chalk paint in white. And I have this sitting on some wax paper so that it doesn't stick to it while the paint is drying. And then once that has dried with the 3 coats, I'm going to set that to the side as well. I am also using one of Hobby Lobby's white berry picks. Now this was $2.99, but I did get it on sale with a coupon. And the white color is a little bit of an off-white, so I do go in and paint each one of the berries in the Waverly white chalk paint. And I also went over the branch a bit just to give it a nice dusting, sort of like a snowy effect. Then I'm going to take the glass piece, and I'm going to go over this with my matte Mod Podge with one nice even coat. And this is to protect that chalk paint so that it doesn't chip off of this glass. While that is still wet, I'm going to insert it back into the frame, and this is going to help seal that glass to the frame on the outside edges. And then I'll put my backing back in, and then I'm going to allow that Mod Podge to completely dry before I apply the welcome word to it. And I'm putting some Mod Podge on the entire back of this wording. Now you may be thinking, why didn't you just put that on there while the Mod Podge was still wet? I needed it to be dry because in order to get this metal lettering to stay down flat, I had to set something heavy on top of it so that it could dry there, and I wanted to make sure that the glass was dry before I applied this. So I just applied the word, put some wax paper over top of it, and then just set something not super heavy because you don't want to break the glass, but just enough weight to keep those letters down until the glue dries. Once that has dried, now I can attach my berries, and I just wanted it to come out of the bottom left-hand corner of the frame. So I'm going to take my wire cutters and cut that down. And then I will attach this with some hot glue, and you can't really see this, it's a little bit out of frame, but I'm just putting some hot glue on the back of the branch. And then I'm going to set that down on the bottom of the frame, and then I'm going to move my berries around until I get them to the desired look. And after that, this project is finished. And I think it's absolutely gorgeous. This looks like a very nice high-end piece that you can keep out all winter long. Let me know what you think of project number 1. If this is your first time visiting my channel and you are enjoying today's DIYs, I would love for you to click that subscribe button and the bell icon below this video, and like, comment, and share with your friends. It really helps my channel to grow. I would also love for you to come visit me on Instagram at Country Lily Decor. Let's get started on our second project. I am using this round floral wreath form that's 9.8 inches from Dollar Tree, and I'm going to give that one good coat of my Waverly chalk paint in Truffle just so that you wouldn't see the greenery, because I am going to be wrapping this with some ribbon, but I didn't want you to see the green foam. So I just did one coat. You can still see some of the green, but that's okay. And I'm going to wrap this with some of Dollar Tree's burlap ribbon. And see, it's pretty thin, you could see through it, so I just wanted to make sure that it looked nice and elegant when we are finished. I'm going to hot glue the end, and then I'm going to wrap the entire wreath form trying to overlap it about halfway through the ribbon. If you do it about halfway, this one roll of 9-foot ribbon will go almost all the way around it. You will have one little spot that's not going to be covered, but that's okay because we're going to cover that with some florals. So just hot glue that end on to the end of the ribbon, and the wreath form will be finished. Now I'm using 2 of Walmart's holiday picks. I'm going to pull these apart, and I'm going to use the pine needle branches first. So I just bend the wire around to give it a little bit more shape so that it will go right here on this section that doesn't have the ribbon. And once I get that to the shape that I want it to be, I am going to take some of Dollar Tree's floral wire, and I'm just going to wrap that around to hold it in place, and then twist the back to tighten that up so that it will stay in place until I finish decorating this. And I do go back in and add a little bit of hot glue. Then I took one of these, I have no idea what the names of these are. They're just like, I'm just going to call them some green stems. I placed one on each side and then added another one on the top of each side, kind of curving out, because you can bend these around and manipulate the shape of them. So I'm going to end up having 3 on each side, with the straighter one in the middle and then the curved ones more at the top and the bottom. And I'm going to place those down with hot glue, but then I am going to go back in and add some floral wire just for some more stability so it doesn't come apart. Once I get that in place, I'm going to take some of these frosted leaves. I'm not sure what those leaves are called, but I'm going to add 1 on each side because I like things to be symmetrical. And I'm just, again, going to bend that and try to stick it down in the floral wire, but it was a little tight, so I do have to put a little hot glue in there to make sure it stays. And then I am going to go back over it with some more floral wire. And then once I get those in place, I can again attach some more hot glue, and then I'm going to place these leaves. Now I'm just going to hot glue these underneath the branches that we've already added on. And then you guys, they come with white berries, but I didn't realize that I had already used one of the white berries off of one of my picks on a previous DIY. So I'm going to use some white berries from Hobby Lobby. So you certainly don't have to use these. You can use the white berries that came off of the Walmart pick. I'm just going to cut a couple of these off, and then I'm going to hot glue those right there at the top. And this is so beautiful. I love these berries. I love the way this white pops off. And then once I get those hot glued in place, I'm going to make a bow using some chevron ribbon from Dollar Tree and some floral wire from Dollar Tree. So the way I made my bow is I determined how long I wanted my tails to be. So I left one tail out, and then I started looping it around, probably about 2.5-inch loops. And I'm going to loop that around. One side is going to have 4 loops, and one side's going to have 3, because that 4th one, I didn't have enough ribbon, so I'm just going to tuck that behind it to make the other tail. Which is okay, because once I fluff it around, it's going to be a nice round bow. Then I took some floral wire and wrapped that around the bow. And then you want to pull that really tightly and make sure that that is nice and secure, and then twist that around. And once all that's twisted, you're going to want to fluff your bow out. And of course, the more you fluff it, the prettier it gets. And then I can use the extra wire, because you want to make sure you leave enough wire on there to attach it to your wreath. And I can wrap that around the wreath form. And then I'm going to go back in and dovetail the tails, and of course fluff my bow out some more. And what I love about this wreath is you can hang it 3 different ways. And I'm going to show you in just a minute. So you could have your bow, this could be the top of the wreath form with the bow at the top and your tails hanging down like that. Or you could flip it over, like twist your bow and have your tails hanging down, and this could be the bottom of the wreath form. Or you could even tuck your tails in and hang it where the bow is on the side. So I myself personally like the bow on the side. You can let me know which way you like best. I did feel like the pine needles were a little too long, so I did go in and trim those down with my scissors, but this is how it turned out, and I think it's gorgeous. Let me know which way you would hang it if you make this wreath. For project number 3, I will be using one of these wood boxes from Dollar Tree, and I only need the bottom part, I don't need the lid. And I'm going to give that one good coat of my chalky gray Deco Art paint. I love this stuff. Again, you guys, I will have that linked in my Amazon store down below if you are interested in this paint. Once that paint has dried, I'm going to use one of Dollar Tree's self-adhesive stencils. I've never used these before. They're a little tedious because they're very small. But I just started off by placing my lettering in the middle, and I'm going to spell out the word peace. I did have to overlap them a little bit because I didn't like the spacing being so far apart. And of course it only has one lowercase e, so I have to paint this part first and then go back in and add my e. I'm using my Waverly chalk paint in white and then one of these sponge brushes, but it was way too big for this lettering, so I just cut a corner of that off. And I dip that down into the lid, and then I am using like a pouncing motion to stay within the stencil. While the paint's still wet, I'll pull those off, and then I'll wipe that E off so that I can place it at the end of the word so I can finish spelling the word peace. And then once I have that finished, I do wipe all of those off with a baby wipe to get the paint off. I'm using 2 of Dollar Tree's bird ornaments, and I've just clipped the bottom pieces off that were holding like the ornament piece. Then I'm going to pull the feet out. And then I took my gray paint and painted each one of the beaks. And then I'm only going to paint one set of feet because I'm only going to be reattaching just one set. And then once that paint has dried for the gray, we're going to go back to our box as that's drying actually. And I'm going to take some Spanish moss from Dollar Tree. And I'm just going to pull a little bit out and I'm going to squeeze it around to make a nest. So I'm just cupping it until it forms like a ball. And then I'm going to use some hot glue to attach that to the top of the box. And again, I'm just going to squeeze around to push it down in the middle and fluff the sides up to make that nest. I'm going to reattach the feet on one of the birds using some hot glue. And then I'm going to hot glue the one without the feet right there into the nest and push down firmly so that it will sit there on top of the box. And then I do add a little bit more glue underneath just to make sure that it stays in place. And then I'm going to apply some hot glue to the bottom of the feet on the other one because I wanted this one to stand up just a little bit taller than the other one. And they look so cute. They look like doves. And I love how this project turned out. It is so pretty. Let me know what you think. For project number 4 is another very simple DIY using 2 of Dollar Tree's plastic lanterns. I'm just going to remove the tags from both of these, and the tops actually pop out if you push those little tabs in. You can just slide the top off, remove the handles out of the holes, and then you can slide that plastic insert out. It just has some grooves down at the bottom, and it just slides right out. I'm going to set those to the side, and I'm going to paint the bottom part of the lantern in my Waverly chalk paint in white, just so that it doesn't look like a plastic lantern. And I'm going to paint the tops with that same gray paint that I've been using in this video. When you're painting the tops, you want to make sure you get those underside edges at the top of the lantern and then where it meets right there at the bottom, because you will be able to see those. And then I also went inside that little top round piece and painted that as well. And then for the frame, I'm only going to paint the outside edges because once you put that insert back in, you won't see the inside of this lantern. Now that everything has dried, I can just reassemble it by pushing those plastic pieces back down into those grooves and then reapplying the top and snapping it back into place after I put the handles back through the holes. Now this project is super easy, but with just a little bit of paint, instead of it looking like a plastic ornament, it now looks very high-end. And I displayed mine on some candlesticks that I already had. I've already DIY'd this, and I'm sorry I don't have a video on that. That was before I started YouTube. And I think these are gorgeous. I love how they turned out, and I love how they look with the birds. Let me know what you think. Okay, last project of the day. I am using one of Dollar General's glass mason jars with the snowflake on the front, and I'm going to paint the outside of this jar with 2 coats of my Waverly chalk paint in white, and I'm going to make sure that that has completely dried before I go back in and paint the snowflake. So we're going to change it up a little bit. I'm not going to use the gray paint on this one. I am going to be using some black chalkboard paint from Dollar General. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a napkin and I'm just going to dab into the paint, and then I'm going to dab on top of the snowflake. And it's okay if you get a little bit outside of the snowflake because I'm going to give it a little bit more of a stone look. So I'm just dabbing right there on top, and it'll stay mostly right there on top of the snowflake. And then see how it was creating those dots on the outside? I loved that. So I went back in with the corner of my paper towel and wiped most of that off, and then I went around the entire jar just adding little dots, little speckles. And I just loved how this was coming together. So once you go all the way around the jar, it's very pretty. It almost looks like stone, and you're going to let that dry. Then I took some buffalo check ribbon. This ribbon came from Hobby Lobby, but you can of course use that from Dollar Tree. And I am folding it in half and hot gluing it together so that it will be the same width as the rim of the jar. Then I'm going to wrap that around the jar and secure that in place with some hot glue. And I'm going to do that all the way around until I get to the front. I'm not going to hot glue the front yet so that I can tie a pretty simple bow. And of course, if you use the ribbon from Dollar Tree, well, my Dollar Tree's buffalo check ribbon's very wide, so you would have to probably fold that over a couple of times. I'm just tying a simple regular bow. And then I will go in and add a little bit of hot glue behind that bow so that it will stay in place on the jar. And then I'll go in and cut the tails down to the length that I want. So I didn't dovetail them. I just kind of liked the tails being a little straight. And then I'm going to decorate this with the leftover pine branch from the wreath I made earlier, as well as one of Dollar Tree's winter picks. I'm going to cut that down to size, put it right there inside that mason jar, and this project is complete, and I love this. Of course, I love decor that is black and white. I love the contrast of it. I think it's beautiful. I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you have a favorite, please let me know in the comments down below. I really do appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you so much for watching. Please take care, and I will see you guys next time.